How's it going, everybody? This is D from Project Airwaves. I got my head in the clouds today and I just can't seem to find a way to get my feet planted firmly on the ground. So I'm hoping by the time we're done with this, I'll feel a little more grounded. But for now, let's just jump into it and get this fire started. This is me doing something a little more personal. Consider this my own little spin-off. I just kind of want to get on a more personal note with everybody, open myself up, just kind of put myself out there a little bit more, give you a different perspective of me outside of Project Airwaves, just because a lot of times me and Lynn, we're coming up with our topics and we're just bouncing back and forth off of each other as far as like, what we're talking about, transitioning and things like that. But I'm rolling solo this time and it's different because I'm thinking on my feet and I don't have anybody to bounce anything off of. I don't have that instant response to let me know, I'm on the right track, or, I might be getting off topic, things like that. So this is D moving forward. But first, let me say hello. Thank you for joining me. Thank you for listening. And I hope this will be a thing. I really do. I want to get to know each other, and I want you to get to know me more than anything, because I want you to know what you can expect. I don't expect everybody to agree with stuff I'm going to say. I don't expect everybody to like what I say. I do look forward to criticism and constructive feedback. Let me know if I stepped on your toes or if I said something that was not pleasing. At the same time, make sure it has relevance, because we're going to talk about just anything that pops off the top of my head. To be quite honest, I'm not one of those people. I don't like to write things down in advance. I feel like it sounds scripted and it sounds kind of like studied. I don't like that. I'm kind of more from the hip type of guy. And this is going to sound bad, but I don't like to think things through to that extent. I like to be more free flowing, and whatever comes out, and we'll be headed one direction. Sometimes we end in another direction. Sometimes we will veer off and then come back, and that's just how it's going to flow. That's just me. That's just how my head works. So I hope that doesn't frustrate some of you too much. So for those of you that are still here, once again, thank you. Chillax, get comfortable, grab a drink, grab a snack. It's going to be a long one. I got a lot to talk about. So with me, I like to kind of randomly record stuff. I am a fan of writing poetry, or at least I used to when I was younger. With me, I didn't have a certain structure or anything. I didn't really learn too much as far as, how to write poetry and all the wonderful terminology, because, it's really cool once you actually get into it. But I've always just kind of found my flow and just did it. I just ran with it. I'm one of those people, like, once I get it out of my head, I usually don't like to go back over it. I actually like to pretend it doesn't exist, because once it's out of my head, I don't think about it anymore. And I don't like to dwell on things for too long as far as like little insignificant stuff. So if it's a poem, hey, get out whatever you got to get out, and then let's get back on the track to life. I've realized that for a lot of my life, that's just how I like to live. I just like to sometimes do things without always understanding what I'm doing. More times than not, it has blown up in my face, but at the same time, it's helped me learn a lot and gain a lot as far as character building with me as a person, as an individual, with me as a friend, with me as a companion, father figure, future father, future husband, all of that. It's helped me become a well-rounded person. So I'm thankful for all of my accomplishments and all of my many failures. So one of the things I wanted to cover today is I just wanted to talk about how we feel. We hear stuff on TV and we see people on TV that have issues talking about their emotions or controlling their emotions more times than not, because we see a lot of, person-to-person physical conflict more times than not, because people can't control their emotions, or something happened and they just kind of got flared up for a moment and some random act of violence occurs. Or even on a lighter note, your emotions flare up and you say something you don't really mean, and now you have that self-regret, that kind of inner turmoil, and now you got to apologize. And I don't know about you, but I hate apologizing for things. I'm not a fan of apologies, so I'm very slow in some things when it comes to like thinking about what I'm going to say. Like even doing this, it freaks me out because, like I said, I don't like to write things down because I don't want it to sound scripted. And at the same time, it's kind of one of those, okay, so what is your natural flow? Because I'm so used to, like I said before, ping-ponging with Lynn off of his ideas or, something he said. I'm just kind of, talking to myself. I'm staring at a wall, saying what I got to say and seeing what comes up. So, it's kind of random. And I've always kind of wanted to just kind of do a recording like that, where I could just be random and I can just be me and I don't have to stick to a particular topic or anything like that. I just want to talk. I just want to be a person. I just want to be me right now, and me doesn't follow a script. So sorry, not sorry. For me, when it comes to emotions, like you've heard in previous episodes, hopefully you've listened to our previous episodes in Project Airwaves. If you haven't, jump on the Anchor, Spotify, or Apple Music, whatever, and just go ahead and give us a listen. Like I've talked about before, I didn't do well with handling emotions like my anger or my depression, or that inner voice, like if you can picture, you got the angel and the demon, left, right shoulders, so on and so forth. And it's like that one voice gets louder than the other, but it's like, what do you do when those voices are at the same volume? You have your moral compass, you have who you are as a person and just your overall life experience, that kind of help guide your decisions, always for the better, of course, but we can all agree we've made some bad decisions, most definitely. So it's one of those things, like when emotions, I feel like that's what it comes down to. It's like there is no, oh, you should only feel this one way and not feel any other way. As a human being, I believe that you are entitled to feel exactly how you want to feel. Right or wrong is dependent upon who you are and who you talk to. Now, don't get it twisted. There's obviously, like I said before, moral compass. So there's things you can do that's just downright right and other things that are just downright wrong. But what I mean is, when you feel something, when you feel a certain way, so that's like if I met you on the side of the road or walking down the street. I know, awkward circumstances, don't worry about it. But if we just happen to run across each other and I said, hey, the sky is green, and you go, no, the sky's blue. I go, no, the sky's green. I go, it's always been green. You just can't tell because you're colorblind. Most humans are colorblind, so what you think is a pigment of blue is actually green. You go, no. So then we get in a back and forth. So eventually you are going to think I'm crazy. So the longer and longer this conversation carries on, you start to get angry, obviously. Well, let's start with irritated, because I believe there's levels of anger. So you start to get irritated. You want to end the conversation. I'm just some stranger. You don't even know me. However, at the same time, fuck it. Why not hear what he's got to say? But I mean, if it's just some normal cat that just has a different perspective of things, what's so wrong with hearing him out? What's so wrong with taking in a different perspective? Life is all about experiences. And so I think, especially with emotions, with a lot of experiences, we have to start inward. And that's not easy, but especially with our emotions. And it's kind of funny because if you look at it, the bigger perspective of the world is kind of like, I think it's funny that we try to explore space and everything like that, and we don't even really know what's going on with our own planet. But if you really get down to a more, smaller perspective, a lot of times we're more interested in learning about other people than we are ourselves. We want to be told how to feel about something because we don't trust ourselves to feel the right way. We don't trust our emotions because they may have led us astray once or twice in the past. And a lot of times when people don't have that direction, that guidance of, you should feel this way if something happens, you should feel that way if this thing happens, it's just an explosion of emotions. And 9 times out of 10, at least from what I've been seeing recently, it's usually anger. And I think that's a very, very telling sign of how society has developed since I was born in 1988. So I've noticed that, like me, myself, I'm a naturally angry person. And that's because when I was a child, my upbringing was very sheltered. And so when I found out there's this big, amazing world and there's all this stuff you could do, and I was being held back from it, I was a little resentful because I didn't understand. Obviously, I was too young to understand. But at that time, as we all do when we are growing from, infancy into childhood into adolescence, you kind of get a chip on your shoulder. And for a lot of us, we kind of think we rule the world. I got a little life experience under my belt and I was just going nuts. I was like, Ma, you can't hold me back. Let me go. Unchain these shackles. And I took off and I ran straight into a wall. I just got into all types of shenanigans, y'all. Like I learned how to steal. I was lying to people. I was manipulating people. I was trying to manipulate girls' emotions. I was doing all types of stupid stuff. And, for a lot of us, you'd be like, well, I mean, that's fairly normal. Like, big words, but that's pretty average for, teenagers. Is what we do. But for some other people, it's just like, no, that's not natural. That's not cool. And for me, I kind of teeter-totter on both sides. It depends what you did, like what's the specifics. And we'll get into conversations like that as far as certain story time certain story time situations that we might want to go into discussion about later on. But for me, with my emotions, I've had to learn the hard way more times than not that I have to stop and I have to evaluate not only the situation, but I have to evaluate me. A lot of people don't like to do that because they like to react. They like to be in the moment. They like to be in the now, and they want to react right now, and then they'll deal with the consequences later. And I think that's not always, and when I say not always, 60 to 70% of the time, that's not always the best thing to do. And that's because there's a lot of variables at work at any given time, just being alive. Depending on the situation, say you're getting in an argument with a person and they're just pushing all the right buttons to just set you off. It's like, okay, well then start asking questions. I've noticed a lot of times when people get in arguments, they want to accuse, they want to throw shade, they want to, get their point across. They want to make you feel how they feel. They want to make sure that this is what they've seen and yada, 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 yada. And all of that, while it's all fine and dandy, it's irrelevant. Because if all we're doing is trying to take stabs at each other, and if all we're doing is trying to be the winner, and we're not helping each other get better, if we truly want to understand each other. And I'm not just talking about relationships, I'm talking about friendships, I'm talking about just even with strangers. It's one of those things where sometimes people know how to push your buttons, but they don't always know how to listen. So sometimes you got to listen, and then you got to help them understand how to listen, because a lot of times we just want to talk. We talk, and nothing ever gets said, nothing ever gets resolved, nothing ever gets fixed, nothing ever changes. And then we get mad and we ask stupid questions like, why isn't anything changing? Why am I going through this all over again? I just dealt with this a minute ago. It's your fault. It's one of those things where you have to evaluate the situation, evaluate yourself. And I can only speak from personal experience, so I will never tell you to do, scratch that. I can't tell you to do squat. I will never recommend you do anything that I haven't done myself or been through myself. So everything that you're listening to, everything we're going to talk about in the future is me, like I said, firing from the hip, because it's my own personal experience. So I'm not quoting nobody here. I'm not referencing any thesis on anything or anybody's project paper or published works or anything like that. I'm publishing D. I'm repping D. I'm going to, quote D. That's just how it goes, So you want the D, you came to get the D, you got it. All right, let's go. For me, when it came to dealing, with my emotions of anger and outburst, it came at a rough price because I'm hard-headed. A lot of us, if you're old school, you understand what that term means. I'm hard-headed. It takes me a minute to get the point across, and it takes a minute for me to get my point across because I think a lot and I overthink a lot. I overthink so much. So, I'll be so deep into an argument that I just kind of lose myself and I lose track of what's going on. Well, here's the thing. Even though mentally you are checked out, you are still physically doing something because you're still in the middle of a fight. So it would be like I would kind of go on emotional autopilot. I would just flip on the anger because obviously a fight, 9 times out of 10, a fight is started because you're angry. So I just flip on my angry autopilot, and then that leaves the rest of me time to just kind of check out, wander off, and have squirrel moments. And I'm like, what am I doing? Why am I over here tripping balls about something insignificant that's happened before, that's gonna happen again? And all I gotta do is just be like, look, you have a choice. You can either go down the same road you've always gone down, or you can choose to take the path less traveled. You're going to hear me talk about that because that is like the motto for my life. Like once I really understood who I wanted to be and who I was, it was one of those things where, okay, you have to make a decision not to do what everybody else did. You have to make the decision not to do what everybody else wants you to do. You have to choose to do for you. And that's kind of hard for some people. Some people need to be told. They're used to being told what to do. They're used to having that guidance, that perspective. But when you tell somebody, look, I'm taking my hands off of you. Look, I'm gonna let you do you. Right now, I don't want to be in this fight. Right now, I don't want to be in this situation. Right now is not benefiting you or I. So how about we just decide to just stop? How about we just take a break? How about we walk away for a minute and then come back? Because a lot of times you'll notice that when you're level-headed, you tend to think a little more clearly. You tend to make better decisions. You tend to have better judgment. You tend to have better discernment. When somebody is just yelling out of anger and out of sorrow, they don't always say things that they mean. Whether or not you felt it, you're not always saying things you mean just because you want to hurt that person. And, that's just how it goes. But if you decide that I'm not going to respond to that, if you decide that it's not worth my time, regardless how you may react, how the other person may react, regardless of what the other person may say. Because once that fire is started, you got to give fuel to the flame. So they're going to keep trying to stoke that fire. Don't get it twisted. Just because you don't respond that one time doesn't mean they're not going to keep poking the bear. But at the same time, it just takes that one time for you to go, I'm not going to respond to this. I'm not going to give you the time, because my emotions, just as well as my life, are valuable. Just like your words are valuable. Your perception is valuable. Everything you do in this life is valuable. Consider it like when you die, okay? When you die, and yes, I believe in an afterlife. So when you die, I believe you'll have to give an account of your entire life. You will literally be the most important witness on the stand in the court hearing of your life, and the experiences of your life, and the decisions you chose to make in your life, and the emotions you chose to feel, all are going to be taken into account. And that's crazy to me. And I know some people may not jive with that, and that's okay. But like I said at the beginning, that's cool. Just stick with me. Let's keep moving forward, But with me, I feel that I want my life to be interesting. I want my life to be unexpected. If somebody has to look back on my life, if somebody were to pull up this recording right now and they go, who is this cat from Project Airwaves? Who is this dude? I really want to get to know who he is. I don't want them to meet the angry me. I don't want them to meet the old me. By the way, we're just talking about one emotion right now as far as I go. We'll get into the other emotions in future episodes. But I don't want them to see that angry side of me, because I'm better than that. My anger is only one emotion in a vast spectrum of emotions in who I am as a person. I want you to see my level-headed side, because that's going to be the best way I can communicate with you. That's going to be the best way I can get my point across. And that's going to be the best way I'm going to understand you, one human being to another, just like I want you to understand me. I was saying before, we just got to understand ourselves. We have to be accountable for our actions. We have to be held accountable for our emotions to ourselves, like you are accountable to yourself. So you, speaking solely to you, should want to do better. If you know the situation is coming, if you know it's going to happen, if you've seen it happening on the horizon, you dealt with it before, and you already know how it's going to play out with that person or that situation, then if you've been through it so many times before, you should be an expert at this. Take a breath, step back, bullet time. Survey the area, figure out what's going on, and then take another step back and look at yourself. How am I feeling? What am I thinking? What am I about to do? Is this going to benefit the situation? Is it going to make me better? Is it going to make us better? Is it going to make the situation better? If you can't say yes to one or any of those questions, then it's probably not worth you doing. And I'm just saying that, like I said, from a calm perspective. Sometimes you just have to be calm. Don't get it twisted. There's always a time and a place for you to just wow the hell out. So I'm not saying don't ever get mad. What I'm saying is, in situations that are not life or death, where it's not going to affect anything in the long run as far as you making it from one day to the next. If it's that one little fight, if it's that one little situation, if it's that one little irritation, such as road rage, it's not worth it. It's just not worth it. But hey, that's just me. I'm D. Maybe I'm just overthinking it. Thank you guys for listening. Stay tuned for the next episode. Can't wait to talk to you again. Have a wonderful day.